John, Anik, and Kenny Florian podcast. John, Anik, and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. They're a couple of absolutely self-involved bull artists.
Here are your hosts, John, Anik, and Kenny Florian.
Headshot. Bang.
You know, Christopher Mad Dog Russo, Sirius Satellite Radio, always lets his theme song bleed. So good. I'm not sure we've ever been this excited to do an episode of the Anik and Florian podcast. That's not show hyperbole. That is not recency bias. We're very excited to be here. Almost as excited as we were to see each other. I think our producer, Cody Meyer, was actually a little bit put off by the nature of our bromance, if you want to call it that. But great to have you with us, truly, after what was a very special weekend for the sport, for the two of us, for the show. It's Monday, July 10th, 2023, episode 421 of the Anik and Florian podcast, presented by DraftKings. We do appreciate you subscribing to the YouTube channel. That is the DraftKings channel. All of our video episodes, full length, are there. We're also on the DraftKings network. And if you do like the show videos, I'm told that helps as well and helps populate the Anik and Florian podcast stuff for you under that DraftKings umbrella. But it's great to see you, kid. You know, it's great to see you. It was great to do a live broadcast with you, presented by UFC Fight Pass there at the UFC Fan Expo. And I feel like we're chasing the clock already, right? Like, kind of want to skip the pleasantries today, but it was nice to see you and have some sliders and enjoy a good meal.
Absolutely. I think my favorite part was you and your brother just trading barbs back and forth. I think that was my favorite, seeing which Anik was going to outwit the other Anik. But yeah, dude, great to see you right now, but not as good as seeing you in person. But I'm glad you had a great show, dude. What a weekend, man. Amazing, amazing fights. What a card.
Twin Bro and I ready to kill each other as of this morning. So Jorge Gamebred Masvidal right across the aisle from me on American Airlines on our way back down to Miami. So that was fun as well. But yes, there is so much to get into. And I do believe we could spend 45 minutes on Alexandre Pantoja and Brandon Moreno. Cody just, he just wrote Jason Anakin coach in the chat. And it threw me off because, you know, we do try to upgrade him to first class whenever possible. But yes, he did fly back. Coach. So hope you're enjoying the new studio today. I'm going to have a hard time pulling it together here. I hope you're enjoying the new home studio. As many of you know, we have upgraded the internet. We're trying to do this for the sake of the show. First time we're using sort of everything together, this Shure microphone and everything else. So for the audio files out there, please chime in at Anik Florian Pod if it doesn't sound great. So what an international fight week it was. We can't thank the fans enough for coming out, watching the live broadcast, taking pictures with Kenny Florian. But let us get to Alexander Volkanovski. And you heard us finally tease EA Sports UFC 5. And I don't play the video game, but I texted Alexander Volkanovski. How do they not put you on the cover, right? I mean, is this not the easiest decision in the history of putting people on the cover of video games with respect to John Jones? Like, how do you not put Alexander Volkanovski on the cover, which I guess is neither here nor there. It's another title defense for the featherweight champion, Ken-Flo. TKO comes at 4:19 of round 3. Masterfully handled in all realms of mixed martial arts. Doesn't even begin to describe it. Your thoughts on the greatest featherweight of all time?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Masterful is the operative word here. You know, Volkanovski was the professor and Rodriguez was the student on Saturday night. I think it's almost that simple. Alex is just a pleasure to watch, a rare athlete, martial artist, and fighter combination. You really don't see that very often. And when I look at Yair, you know, I see this guy, he's fire. And if you let a fire get out of control, then it's going to overwhelm you. And for Alexander Volkanovski, you know, he never let Yair get out of control. He took away his rhythm. He took away a lot of those combinations. When Yair wanted to move forward, he was gone. And then he would switch his stances and lure him into traps as Volkanovski does so well. This is one of the smartest fighters that I've had the pleasure of watching. These are the kind of guys that I like to watch and learn from. And these are the guys that are leading the dance when it comes to evolving the sport forward. If you are a professional fighter and you're not watching and analyzing and learning from Alexander Volkanovski, then I can't help you. You got to be looking at these guys that are moving the sport forward. He has a multi-layered offense and defense that is so tough to get through. He is a sophisticated operator, and he just might be the best pound-for-pound fighter in the sport right now.
And I'm sure you could just go on, and we're going to let you do that. I don't want to talk too much because I think there's probably nobody better equipped to talk about the nuanced nature of Volkanovski's game than you, and just how he sequences everything together. And it's crazy to think back to him winning the title in 2019 when he was just fine, right? Like, he was great, but he wasn't even close to the version that is presented right now. By the way, your wall unit on this wide shot looks great. Looks very expensive, that wall unit behind you, like beaded tufts or whatever the fuck that is. But I was listening to Luke Thomas earlier today. He was talking a lot about Craig Jones, so I figured I would throw that your way. Just some of the things in terms of the leg manipulation and just from one thing to the next on the ground. A lot of that stuff goes over my head, but the grappling game for Alexander Volkanovski is pretty darn special at this stage of his career.
Yeah, his positioning was key heading into this fight, and I thought that's where he would be able to expose a guy like Yair Rodriguez. If your position is good, then you take away a lot of the submission attempts and sweeping attempts and get-ups of your opponent. And training with someone like Craig Jones, who, again, is one of the best in the world, not only as a competitor in the submission world, but also as an instructor. Craig Jones is a very, very intelligent guy who knows how to break it all down and make it simple. And, he's one of those guys that is evolving the sport forward in jiu-jitsu. And now, with Volkanovski, or him being in the corner of Volkanovski, he's able to do that with MMA as well. These are the things that fighters should be doing. You seek out the best in their domain and you bring them in to help you. And Volkanovski has very intelligently done that. And his ability to control Yair and shut down his offense is what it's all about. If you're able to neuter your opponent, and in chess they say all you got to do is get your opponent to not play at the best of his ability. If you can get him to play poorly, you greatly increase your chances of winning. And the other thing that we talked about last week in Volkanovski's game is that he doesn't make mistakes. So what the hell are you supposed to do with a guy that doesn't make mistakes, who's very positionally sound and can defeat you in a lot of different ways? Volkanovski knows how to beat you, and he has the execution and the composure to go out there and do it. Just amazing to see his evolution as a fighter and all the different ways that he can get you to just be confused out there. Everything from that inside low kick to that shifting stance going backwards to the hook with the other stance as he rocked Yair Rodriguez. It's just, he's doing things that a lot of fighters just aren't. So Volkanovski, man, is an absolute master of MMA.
So if you're Yair Rodriguez and you would have this fight over, now knowing the levels respectively that these guys are at, right? I mean, certainly we've talked a lot about Yair Rodriguez and his bottom game and how good his guard is and everything else, but he was completely neutralized on this evening. I sort of feel like now, knowing what he knows, he might just try to come out a little bit faster, because every man is human. Every man can be knocked out. And I don't know. Do you think if Rodriguez had this fight over, maybe he would have just started a little bit quicker in terms of just throwing some of the high-risk weaponry Volkanovski's way? Because playing any sort of long game with this guy, Ken-Flo, I just don't think is fruitful.
Right. But that's the thing, though. I think here's where, if you have the ability to take your opponents down and strike at a high level, you create these dilemmas for guys like Yair Rodriguez, where let's say he comes forward, he gets super aggressive, he gets taken down that much easier. Or what I thought Volkanovski was doing so intelligently was he would just kind of diffuse. Anytime he'd come forward, he'd just kind of back out a little bit, circle, move laterally, just take away that space. And it never allowed Yair to really be comfortable. So even if he's moving forward and getting aggressive, Volkanovski has the footwork and the tactics to not even let Yair do that. So he put Yair in a very difficult spot. And, the way he's able to mix things up, I don't know if it would have gone any differently at this stage of the game. I think what it comes down to is Yair needs to be a little bit more sophisticated, a little slicker, and for sure needs to improve his grappling. And that's what really takes the longest, in my opinion, to learn for most people, is to be so sound defensively with your wrestling and your jiu-jitsu and your ability to get up. So I think he will achieve that. I think we will see great improvements in Yair's game. But at this stage of the game, if they went, if they fought 10 times, I definitely see Volkanovski winning probably 9 out of 10 at this stage of the game, maybe more.
Knowing Volk the way I do, I feel pretty confident that he's going to do everything in his power to get his arm cleaned up and fight again this year. 4 fights in 2023, he intimated in our fighter meeting, would be out of the question. But I do think a third in December is absolutely realistic. You can call that informed speculation if you want. But in terms of the big picture for Volkanovski, we'll get into the divisional stuff in a minute, and I guess it ties in here. I don't believe he needs to move up to lightweight with immediacy and start chasing that to be considered a GOAT or the greatest of all time, right? A lot of people are making comparisons now to Demetrius Johnson and now starting to trot out that GOAT emoji, which maybe wasn't necessarily trotted out for Volk before. Yes, you and others have called him the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Now people are calling him the greatest of all time. I don't even need to have that discussion. I bring it up in the context of what Volkanovski said after the fight, which is that there are records that he has prioritized. Like, this man is acutely aware of the history books. He is so passionate about mixed martial arts and getting better. And I believe Jose Aldo has 8 featherweight title defenses across the WEC and the UFC. So Volk now sits at 5, and it's going to be difficult to get to 8 or 9, right? It's hard to imagine him making 4 more title defenses, right? So maybe it's just overall title fight wins or championship title defenses. Some of those could be made at 55. The Ilia Topuria fight looms. The Aljamain Sterling fight potentially could loom. If Aljamain Sterling gets past Sean O'Malley, that was one of the names that Volk uttered in our fighter meeting. He is interested in the Aljamain Sterling fight. It's hard to imagine a long 4 more fight run at 45 for Alexander Volkanovski. But at the very least, the Topuria fight next makes a shit ton of sense.
Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense as well. I think that if you're going to face a guy like Ilia Topuria, you want to face him earlier than later. I think he's only going to get better and add more skills and layers to his game. So I think it makes sense for Volkanovski to take that next. I also think there's a ton of hype and momentum for Ilia Topuria. And obviously they had words, it seemed like, right after that fight, and Topuria was there for a reason. I think he's trying to push it. He wants that fight. He may be ready, man. There's no question about it. I may be wrong on that maybe he doesn't need more layers to his game. Perhaps he already has it. But if I'm a Volkanovski and I'm trying to maximize what I can do in my prime, because make no mistake, he is in his prime, you take Ilia Topuria next, and then perhaps Aljamain Sterling after that. So I think he's positioned very well. I'm not sure if he will surpass Jose Aldo's defense record at this stage. Wouldn't be surprised if he does either. I'm not sure he wants to stick around for that long, but why not? If you're in your prime, maximize your ability to take those fights and make as much money as possible. He's a star in my book, no question about it.
A lot of guys in the top 15 right now are coming off losses. That includes number 3, Brian Ortega, number 4, Arnold Allen. Second ranked Max Holloway is about an 8-1 favorite against the Korean zombie Chan Sung Jung. And as many of you know, he has 3 head-to-head losses against Alexander Volkanovski. You do have, of course, Ilia Topuria, and then the guy that I would inject into the conversation, the number 10 ranked featherweight in the world, Movsar Evloev. The opposite of a picnic for any man in the world, 155 pounds and under, just a pain in the fucking ass to fight Movsar Evloev. So that is a fight that I would submit to you as one that I would like to see for Alexander Volkanovski, but I don't know what his divisional intentions are right now. I know he wants that Islam Makhachev fight, but he said he wanted an immediate rematch, like he wanted it 3 weeks after the fight, because he knows exactly what he didn't do in that first fight with Islam. So, what do you think, man? Like, what do you think in your mind to prove all-time greatness? Does he have to go, win a belt at 55? Because I think he's competitive against Dustin Poirier and everybody else up there.
That's a good question. Here's what I would say is that if he did win the belt at 155 pounds against Islam Makhachev, then it'd be hard to deny him that. Those are 2 of the most insane divisions in UFC history. You look at it from 2023 all the way back, it's never been this competitive, and those are 2 divisions that have always been really tough, but they're not tougher than they are right now. So for him to do what he's done at 145 pounds, go to 155 pounds, beat Islam Makhachev, then I would put my stamp on that. And I don't think I would have a problem with that. As of right now, I would have my doubts. I would be hesitant a little bit, but from what he's showing from a technical perspective, a tactical perspective, from a consistency perspective, he's just unbelievable to watch. So he's well on his way.
How do you handicap a fight between Justin Gaethje and Alexander Volkanovski?
Oof.
Like, that's insane. It's insane to think about the possibilities. And I don't think Gaethje's long for this game. And he's a very slight underdog in 3 weeks against Dustin Poirier. But if Justin Gaethje were to lose to Dustin Poirier, well, I wouldn't be surprised to see him be done. I think he has a lot of ways to make money after fighting. I think he made a lot of money in fighting, but it's just hard not to think about some of these amazing fights for Volk in the lightweight division. But I do believe it'll be Ilia Topuria next. And that's not based upon any inside information. Perhaps they would try to do Volkanovski and Makhachev. It's certainly not going to happen in October in Abu Dhabi because Volk's going to get his arm cleaned up. But what a tremendous champion. And as so many people, Dana White and others have alluded to, what a tremendous asset, Kenny, to the promotion to have guys like Alexander Volkanovski and Israel Adesanya, just champions who want to fight all the goddamn time. Like, I don't know if Hunter Campbell knew about the arm injury, but I'm lip reading all night at the Octagon. As soon as Volk wins, I see Hunter Campbell say, I'll see you in the back. We'll figure out what's next.
Right.
Because that's what Volk wants. If Volk was 100% healthy, right, this dude would be trying to fight in maybe in 8 weeks in Sydney. So just a tremendous asset for the promotion as well.
No question about it, man. All
right. So in terms of that accidental clash of heads, it was the only other thing in my notes as far as the fight was concerned. It's hard to quantify its impact, right? I think the outcome was an eventuality, but I do have to say, man, watching those replays, not ideal for Yair to have to absorb that. That was pretty significant. His head spun sideways and, I don't know. It was the only thing I had in my notes. I could have, I guess, failed to bring it up, but I figured I'd bring it up.
It's a nasty one, and a lot of times those types of headbutts do a lot more damage than you would think. I know that Ryan Hall, when he fought Ilia Topuria, took a headbutt that had him basically out for the rest of the fight, or not really all the way there. And who knows, maybe that played a factor. I don't want to take away from the skill and approach of Alexander Volkanovski, but you also can't deny that there was some serious possible damage there. He could have been concussed after that headbutt. It looked like it was that bad. So unfortunate circumstance there for Yair. Of course, being the warrior that he is, he continued and was fine and seemed good enough to go. But that's not an ideal situation in a championship type setting.
All right, well, congrats to the Volk man, Alexander Volkanovski, and we'll see how they choose to proceed. But what a great champion, and just really remarkable how quickly he has injected himself into that Demetrius Johnson level conversation as one of the very best to ever do it. All right. That was the greatest flyweight fight in UFC history. Some might harken back to, I think, December 2020 at that UFC Apex, Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno fighting to a draw. But Alexandre Pantoja, Parabéns, is your new UFC flyweight champion. He defeats Brandon Moreno by split decision, 48-47 times 2, dissenting judge. Ben Cartledge had it 49-46 for Brandon Moreno. What an absolute war. Tip of the cap, warrior spirit on both sides. The amount of heavy strikes, I watched this back. The amount of heavy strikes that landed on both sides was absolutely absurd. Like, Brandon Moreno's face was unrecognizable, and yet he was the fighter who did more damage on the feet, right? Pantoja absolutely double dose on the Motrin today, but Moreno absorbed a ton of shots. There were not a lot of Brazilian fans to be heard from in that crowd, right? And I do think that Mexican contingent might have played a little bit into that wayward 4-1 scorecard. More on that later, but congratulations to both athletes. And as I'm so fond of saying, there's nothing for me in this job quite like seeing an athlete break through and become a UFC champion for the first time. Congrats to Alexandre Pantoja. Your thoughts on an epic flyweight championship fight?
I think we will look back on this fight as one of the most iconic flyweight fights in UFC history. Just an awesome back and forth title fight that was drama filled. It was technical. It was intriguing the whole time. Both chins, hearts, and brains were tested in this championship fight. And that's what MMA is all about, right? So just amazing. And for Pantoja, he proved that he can go a hard 25 minutes and can go tit for tat against the best in the world in various aspects of the game. That's what I think was most surprising to me anyway. And he was game throughout, and he proved himself a very worthy champion. And he did it against a Brandon Moreno that I thought was in his best form. I thought Brandon Moreno looked way better than he did in his last fight. And from what I saw, he had more skills, but that's how good Pantoja is. It was just an amazing performance. He was too much for Brandon Moreno. And the other thing was the intelligence, executing those takedowns at the right time, getting positions, landing strikes at the right time. And that's where I thought Brandon Moreno would be able to take advantage because of his championship experience. Instead, it was Pantoja who was making those right decisions and executing at the right time to steal critical rounds. So just amazing there for the Brazilian Pantoja. Excellent stuff. Aside from losing position from top position a couple times, it's pretty much as flawless as it gets. And you got to credit Moreno, who fought his ass off and really did his homework, but still wasn't enough for Pantoja. I don't know, just amazing and really, really cool to see that flyweight division, level up.
Some great scrambles from Brandon Moreno, and I do think that he effectively grappled on this night, but I did feel as though Moreno wasn't maybe urgent enough in some of these settings. And it's so interesting how Alexandre Pantoja will be criticized for getting a rest, right? Yet he's the offensive grappler, and no one will suggest that Moreno's ever trying to get a rest when he's either on his back or with his back up against the fence. They're always criticizing Pantoja. And for me too, in terms of the effective grappling, and again, people can always throw the criteria in my face. And I think for Ben Cartlidge, if we were to have a conversation, his argument would be deeply rooted in just the specificity of the language. But Jason Herzog did not so much as warn Alexandre Pantoja. So what would you suggest to people as the elite multi-stripe Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt that you are? Talk to me about Alexandre Pantoja's MMA grappling here, about his body control. He did land a lot of ground strikes. Again, I just don't think he's getting nearly enough credit. And I will say, in a long-winded way, thankfully, his effective grappling was acknowledged enough by two judges, and effective grappling helped him win a world title here, because otherwise we'd be having a different conversation.
Correct. I think what it comes down to is your ability, when you're talking about effective grappling, you're talking about your ability to control the other person and put them where you want and not let them out of certain spots. And when you're talking about getting on top, controlling that position, getting around to the backside, getting a body triangle. These are very dominant positions that will definitely wear on your opponent. They're also great positions for where you could strike from. And they're also great positions, of course, where you can hit things like rear naked chokes and arm locks and, backside triangles from behind. So Ushido Senkaku or whatever, if you want to get all technical with your judo terminology. But yeah, so, I think that Pantoja did a wonderful job of hitting takedowns that landed him right in these very dominant spots. His ability to get that body lock and make and force Brandon Moreno to give his back from top position. Then he was jumping on the back of Brandon Moreno, and Moreno showed excellent defensive skills, but make no mistake, these are defensive skills, not offensive skills. Right. You have to give credit to Pantoja for achieving those positions. I'm a huge Brandon Moreno fan. I've trained with him. I've gone over a lot of these escapes actually with him. So, maybe you'd call me a little biased, but I have absolutely no problem with that decision. I thought Pantoja did enough. I had it 2-2 heading into round 5. I actually tweeted about this. I said it's going to come down to round 5. Pantoja just had superior position to Brandon Moreno. It was an unbelievable fight. Both fighters should be congratulated on this one, but Pantoja just a little too slick, a little too positionally sound, and offensive minded. I think that was the difference here.
I am okay with a 48-47 Brandon Moreno after watching the fight back. Round 3, I gave to Brandon Moreno because at the end of those 5 minutes, there was just too much damage doled out to overlook it, despite all of the back control and what I would deem to be effective grappling overall and some striking on the ground from Alexandre Pantoja, who, by the way, I still don't think got credit for his effective striking in this fight. Round 4, I gave to Alexandre Pantoja. I think there's still an argument there that Brandon Moreno, based upon impact and damage and some of his defensive grappling, could have won that round. But I agree with you. It was 2-2 going into that 5th round. And I said on the broadcast when it was 18 significant strikes apiece, and again, the numbers live don't really mean anything, but I said, man, I felt like Moreno had gotten the better of the striking through 3 minutes in that 5th and final round. Then when I saw the numbers, it really made me want to go back and watch it. And again, I didn't give Pantoja nearly the credit for the fucking bombs he landed in the first 3 minutes of round 5. And then with the effective grappling that he added to his effective striking over the final 2 minutes, round 5 to me was easy to score. And I'm just surprised. I understand for cartilage to have given rounds 3 and 4 to Brandon Moreno, but to not give Alexandre Pantoja round 5, I'm just thankful that particular round score didn't affect the outcome.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing seeing scoring in 2023. And if I was a fighter competing in the UFC, I'd be alarmed many times. And you kind of wonder and scratch your head like, geez, what the hell are these judges looking at? Or what do I need to do to win a round or to fight for that matter? So I think there's a little bit of inconsistency in how judges are seeing these rounds, of course. And maybe that's just the nature of refereeing in general in mixed martial arts, right? It's subjective and the angles in which you're watching the fights matter and all of those things. But, in the end, I think the right guy won. I do not have a problem with Pantoja winning. I think if Moreno won, I would have scratched my head a little bit more. I would love to go back and watch it and look at it. Those there were some close rounds, no question about it. But either way, we had, in my opinion, probably the best flyweight fight that I've ever seen.
Yeah. And it must be said, and perhaps I buried the lead, Ben Cartlidge historically is one of the better mixed martial arts judges. I just feel like if round 5 is not a Pantoja round, then sometimes I don't want to be an MMA fan, right? Because I understand that it always becomes a criteria versus common sense argument, and criteria should always win. And as much as I love the Verdict MMA platform, because I really believe in that audience in terms of its ability to know what it's watching, not a lot of those people understand the criteria in terms of. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the problem is that, if we took a poll on something that people aren't really aware of, it's something like quantum physics or something, and everyone has a certain opinion on, doesn't mean they're right. That means the majority thought that happened, but it doesn't mean they actually know the criteria for judging a fight. So that's kind of my problem with the verdict thing too. It's great to see who won, from a fan perspective, but I'm right there with you.
But in a broad sense, I do think it's wise for coaches to study judges. And I don't know how easily they could actually get these assignments, but damaging moments seem to reign supreme. And I hate to say this to the 3-stripe Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, Kenny Florian. By the way, you going to get your red belt in your 60s or what?
It's 4-stripe, but, I really don't care about that. It's okay. You just took away a stripe from me, John. Come on.
How about the president of Team Florian not knowing how many stripes are on the belt?
Sorry, I cut you off. What were you asking me?
Oh, I don't even know. Are you going to get a red belt in your 60s, I think?
Oh, right. I hope so. If my back holds up, dude. My back's been kind of garbage lately, so hopefully I don't have to retire. I have to stay training. Then I can get my belts, but it doesn't matter.
What I was going to say is that it pains me to tell a 4-stripe Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And again, you trained and fought to finish, and you can laugh about that all you want. But we had a pretty deep conversation this weekend about athletes who train to win rounds versus athletes who train to finish. Ken-Flo just fought pissed. I don't know. What was the matter all the time? You're so nice now.
It's one of those things, right? It's the only way you can guarantee that you're going to get the win is that if you're able to finish. And for me, that was always what I was chasing. It's like, what are the techniques that I'm supposed to be doing here to finish a fight. Assuming, let's take out the sport aspect of it. It's me and him. That's it. Two guys in a room, and you gotta take the other guy out. Two men enter, one man leave. How do you finish that thing? And that's what was always intriguing to me from a fight perspective.
Yeah,
I wasn't always successful, of course, in that realm, but I tried anyway.
So what I was going to say to the 4-stripe Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, by the way, when you get that 5th stripe anyway, how's that work?
That's a good question. I think it's like every 5 years now, something like that. I don't know. I can't keep that.
So I have a caffeine-free Diet Coke here, and I'm a little bit underslept, by the way. I was 3 hours on the runway in Vegas, right? Normally I try to get out of there as quickly as possible. Excuse me. There was no direct flight so early on, so I flew direct middle of the day. But the combination of heat and wind and the heavy nature of our airplane had us on the runway for 3 hours. So I got a caffeine-free Diet Coke here. Kenny would tell you if you put a metal rod in this caffeine-free Diet Coke, it would like disintegrate the whole thing. And I'm pouring this into my actual body. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to take a sip.
Oh, it's great. Your stomach is way tougher than a metal rod, bro.
What I was going to say, though, to the 4-stripe Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and mixed martial arts coach is that I think in a broad sense, effective grappling just doesn't get the consideration that effective striking does, because it's easy to quantify the elbow that just smashed Pantoja's face. And it's harder to quantify Brandon Moreno's breathing pattern in the body triangle and his inability to get out or really do anything up against the fence in round 5, right? So I don't know, man. But I do think it's ludicrous for people to be calling for Ben Cartledge's job. 48-47 Moreno is an acceptable scorecard. Round 5 for Moreno, to me, is not acceptable and makes me want to do everything I can when I retire, if it actually comes to this, to try to affect change when it comes to the criteria, because Kenny and all his contemporaries, find me one of Kenny's contemporaries out there who scored round 5 for the other guy. And then someone's going to say, oh, John, the criteria. And if I say like, fuck the criteria, then I got all these people coming at me. And Sean Sheehan's my friend, but I didn't put him on today because I didn't think he'd want to hear this noise, All right, a lot more to get to on this UFC 290 recap. Ray Longo coming up here in about 12 minutes. Shawnee, I love you, kid. Absolutely love you. Can't wait to have you back on the show. You elevate the whole room. No, we have to decide what's next for Pantoja before we get to Dracus du Plessis.
Okay.
And my tattoo. All right. So Anik Florian podcast poll question at Anik Florian pod. Who would you like to see next for Alexandre Pantoja? So Brandon Royval, as many of you know, weighed in as the backup. 39% of about 3,000 of you would like to see Brandon Royval for the newly minted UFC flyweight champion Alexandre Pantoja. Ken-Flo, 50% would like to see the Brandon Moreno rematch. 11% would like to see Amir Albazi, who many don't believe really deserved to beat Kai Kara-France, at least as far as those scorecards were concerned. So Royval is just an oncoming train, must-see television, weighed in as the backup. But we now are on the heels of what many people believe is the greatest flyweight fight, greatest championship fight in UFC flyweight history. The history is what it is. It's crazy to think about Brandon Moreno preparing for another individual for a 4th time. But hey, half the fan base, at least that I polled, wants to see that rematch immediately, and I can understand why. I do have a soft spot for Royval because of his style, and he's just a good dude. Kenny, what are you doing next at 25 if you're Mick Maynard, who by the way, deserves to be congratulated wholly on what he's done with this division? Go ahead.
No question about it. Mick Maynard's done an amazing job. Listen, I think that if you make this fight again and again and again, we're going to get great fights. Like if you're the UFC and you're trying to put on the best fight possible, then yeah, you could absolutely justify a Moreno Pantoja rematch, especially given the fact that it was very close and maybe some might call it controversial. However, I would think they probably want to move on in that they want some new blood in the division. They want to test Pantoja as the new champ, and I think Pantoja probably deserves that at this stage of the game. He has the wins over Moreno. At least give him a little bit of a break. Put him in there against Albazi. Put him in there against Royval. I think that both guys are aggressive, are going to move forward, are intriguing matchups. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with either of those guys. If I had to lean a certain way, I don't know. I mean, I thought Kai Kara-France won that fight against Albazi, so I'm not necessarily trying to penalize Albazi here, but yeah, maybe Royval probably makes the most amount of sense at this stage of the game.
Yeah, you're almost talking me out of the fourth fight right now with Brandon Moreno, even though I know one of the first three was actually an exhibition. Alexandre Pantoja and Brandon Royval did fight. It was August of 2021, I believe, at the UFC Apex. Pantoja submitted Royval with a rear naked choke, but it's been 3 straight wins for Royval ever since. I agree. I think Pantoja Royval is the fight to make. We all understand how successful the Mexican initiative has been. And again, I know the UFC cuts my check, but how about what this promotion has done to lay infrastructure in Mexico? This probably should have been in our opening segment or the opening 5 minutes of the show, Kenny, right? Like, as somebody who covered so many amazing fights involving Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales and everybody else in boxing, this Mexican imprint has now been made in mixed martial arts, right? These people are descending upon Las Vegas. They overtook the UFC Fan Expo. Their presence was felt from the Jasmine Jauregui fight throughout the rest of the night. This is a huge, huge thing for the UFC. And I can't quantify in terms of the internal metrics how much, they would want to put Moreno back in a championship setting. But I think you go Pantoja, Royval, and that's the flyweight championship fight you do next. By the way, Kenny, what's your schedule like later in the week? We got to catch up with Pahumpa. We were trying actually to get Alexandre Pantoja and Pahumpa later in the week. So depending on your schedule,
I'm down.
Maybe bonus episode of the Anik and Florian podcast. All right. We now have arrived at Dricus du Plessis by TKO over Robert Whittaker. It comes at 2:23 of round 2. He gets a performance bonus, as you might expect. The physicality that this man brings to the octagon is just absolutely incredible. And he's underrated no more, but undeterred is one word that comes to mind when it comes to his overall approach to mixed martial arts. They've put he and his brother Robert Whittaker on a pedestal for years. They felt like maybe this was a dream that could eventually become reality. They could work their way to a fight against Robert Whittaker. They called their shot inside of 10 minutes. And tremendous human being, great individual, great for South Africa, great for mixed martial arts. And we get to know these guys. Couldn't possibly be happier for Dricus du Plessis.
Dricus, he doesn't make it pretty, but that's a part of his strength. And I thought he shelled up extremely well against an offense in Whittaker that really lacked creativity. He wasn't making many adjustments, and Rob seemed to be forcing a knockout out there. I expected Whittaker to punch with Dricus as he came forward, because that's when Dricus is most vulnerable, is when he's punching, when he's moving forward. So I thought that Whittaker really was trying to force a knockout that really wasn't there due to the defense and the shelling of Dricus. And I thought it was Whittaker that was showing some frustration out there. And I also loved the attacks on the ground from Dricus du Plessis. He really surprised me with how aggressive he was in going with that Darce and how he was combining it with excellent ground and pound and positioning. I did not expect that from him. Hit some critical takedowns against Whittaker, which I also did not expect him to get so easily. So I don't know. Rob really wasn't countering properly. And, I thought that overall it was the durability, it was the power, and it was the unrelenting pressure of Dricus du Plessis that got the better of Whittaker. And I don't know. I think it was an amazing performance. It was a performance that I think is good enough. If it's good enough to beat the great Robert Whittaker, then it's good enough to get the next title shot against Israel Adesanya. So I massively underestimated Dricus du Plessis. I think that he not only beat Whittaker, but did exactly what he needed to do if he wanted to guarantee himself that next shot against Adesanya. I mean, finishing Whittaker, I don't think a whole lot of people saw that coming. And the fact that he was able to do that and do it in pretty dominant fashion says a lot. And congratulations to Dricus du Plessis. And just very, very impressed and blown away.
I'm glad to hear you mention the word shelling and shelling up, right? Because I thought from the moment the fight began, Dricus du Plessis was so mindful of Whittaker's power, and he really didn't get touched with anything too significant. I do think it's a huge ask, as I've uttered repeatedly, for him to now turn around in less than 9 weeks now and face Israel Adesanya. His hands were very swollen. He's obviously dealing with some facial cut of some kind as well. So it's obviously asking a lot, but that is not the conversation for right now. It's the du Plessis performance. And Kenny, just the ability to be measured and collected late in the fight, right? He knows Whittaker is completely stunned, and that then he absolutely destroys him with a body shot, right? Like, he's just mixing it up and in that flow state, just a brilliant, brilliant performance. And one thing that I noticed that I should have made more of on the broadcast, the Whittaker visuals, Kenny, on the stool after round 1. Like, he was done, man. Like, he had been effectively collided with by a bus, and he was done. Like, he couldn't get his breathing back. When he stood back up, it was like not the Robert Whittaker that you recognize. Outcome felt like an eventuality after round 1, and I wish I had sort of made more of that visual on the broadcast, but that's an incredible singular middleweight win, man.
No question about it. And I think that a lot of that had to do with du Plessis, no question about it. But I wonder, and I question some of the approach of Whittaker in this one, because it seemed like he was dead set on getting the knockout. And when that really wasn't presenting itself, and when he was throwing shots at the elbows and arms of du Plessis, he just seemed to be overwhelmingly frustrated and didn't adapt. He didn't attack the body. He didn't attack the legs. He wasn't mixing things up as much as I thought he should have. And because of that, he allowed du Plessis to come in and get into proper range and land some critical shots and just overwhelm him with that pressure. So unfortunate for Whittaker. You know, we saw, I guess, kind of a brain fog, or maybe him get overly emotional in his fight against Adesanya, the one that he got knocked out in. And I kind of saw shades of that, where emotionally, you know, Whittaker seems like a very stoic guy, but this was another one of those performances that, you know, you kind of wonder what he was trying to do out there. And I don't know. It was unfortunate, but I think a lot of it had to do with du Plessis and that awkward game.
Yeah.
You know, almost when you have a very technical fighter, it almost serves you to be like a complete opposite, to be like, you know, a polar opposite of that person, because being awkward, being unorthodox, not really having a rhythm that you can get a handle on can really confuse even the best guys in the world.
So du Plessis admitted to being able to breathe better, but I think if he was on the show today, he would tell you that maybe too much has been made of that deviated septum surgery in terms of maybe how much better it makes him feel. Only he could really tell you right now. But you and I, when we were talking in my hotel room before the fight, you sort of talked about the tight nature of some of his striking and his arms as potentially a catalyst for the fatigue. Would you say now, I know we're talking about, you know, let's see, 7 minutes of fight time, but would you say now, like, didn't he look less tight? Am I crazy? Like, he looked less tight upstairs, did he not?
He did. He actually did. He came out way more relaxed, actually. And, you know, it was actually Whittaker that looked way tighter. So I don't know. There's something to be said for being in a position of having nothing to lose. I know we talk about that all the time, but he seemed like he was very much at ease, man. You know, he was tight up when he was shelling, which is what you're supposed to do. But more than anything else, he seemed very loose and relaxed and in his element in a very important fight, man. And he made the most out of it.
You know, I'd hate to need Israel Adesanya to beat him to avoid having to get a flag from the great nation of South Africa tattooed on our body. You know, I can't say that, like, I would want this tattoo as much as the 209 tattoo, if I'm being completely truthful with our audience, but I absolutely love this individual. I love Cameron Simon. I love just the nationalistic nature of what some of these individuals and countries have done to sort of make this UFC imprint, but it is asking a whole lot, Kenny, of him to now turn around and fight Israel Adesanya on 9 weeks' notice. Now, it wasn't ideal for Bilal Muhammad to get his big fight against Gilbert Burns with no training camp, and then he had one wheel essentially, right? But sometimes as a challenger or contender, it isn't on your calendar. And even as a champion like Aljamain Sterling, it's not happening on his calendar. So what would you say to Dricus du Plessis, who would not necessarily have the benefit of bringing in the best sparring partners potentially to provide some length? I mean, how do you prepare for this challenge? And based upon what you saw Saturday night, How do you handicap a fight in less than 9 weeks in Sydney between Du Plessis and Adesanya?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you're facing Adesanya, who is going to have an advantage on a technical level against anyone in that division. So, can he really get that much better in preparation for Adesanya? I don't know. I think his style is already sufficient to pose some problems for Adesanya. So more than anything else, I think it's about managing his training and not going too crazy, since it is a potential tight turnaround. So I think he should allow himself to get healthy, take care of any bumps and bruises that he might have, and get right back into training, ease back into training. You brought up Bilal Muhammad's name. I think that's an appropriate comparison. Why? Because I think these are two guys that are big time athletes in that they can handle a tremendous amount of volume with their training. Of course, I've heard about Bilal's, volume of training. And for Dricus, I don't know that to be a fact, but I would imagine that he can handle that volume of training just based on what I've seen and based on his style of fighting. I think conditioning and being durable is a huge part of who he is. So I don't think it's a major deal for someone like Dricus. For someone else who's more technical and tactical, I would say, give him some more time. But for someone like Dricus Du Plessis, I don't see it as a major hurdle here. I think in some ways it could be advantageous for him.
Man, you're good. I mean, you're really good. Even my twin brother was saying after spending some time with you, it's like, man, analytically, he really is good. I thought you overrated him for years. Dricus Du Plessis gave me a Still Knox sweatshirt too, gave me a gift, and then goes out and does that. God love you, Dricus Du Plessis. Excuse me, Dracus. You can say Dracus, but the audio file Dracus, as in like Draymond Green, Dracus Du Plessis. One name a little bit easier to pronounce, Raymond Peter Longo. Let's get to him.
It's now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in his fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute.
Starring Ray Longo. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Hey, look at this.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Well, that's what I'm talking. I tell you, Kenny knocking it out of the park. I agree. I don't know where he finds the enthusiasm for these fucking breakdowns. But,
coffee helps.
Yes.
So I felt a little bad for Cody. Kenny and I are hitting him pretty hard with this Ray Longo Minute, framing you up and untangling your headphones. We were all together in Vegas, and Kenny and I were like, hey, man, can we get Longo framed up? Can we get him some new headphones? And now this week, you're perfectly framed up. Your headphones don't. Yeah, but it's episode 421.
Holy shit. I'll tell you, this ain't the first time I've been framed. I'll tell you right now. Johnny.
Look at you. Look at your hair. I mean, I don't know. It looks like Chick Hearn or whoever you look like today. You look great, though. It's nice to see you. What a weekend,
I need a hair. What a weekend.
What a weekend for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. UFC 290. I've done about 300 shows. That's the greatest fight card I've ever called. So when you consider all factors, Trump in the building and everything else, just the magnitude of that live event, capstoning International Fight Week, greatest live event I've ever called.
Crazy.
John, I got a question. Did Donald Trump come over to you while you were commentating the fight and basically just interrupt you? What happened?
So it was during the Val Woodburn Bo Nickel preamble. Yeah. And I had to stop myself and tell 45 we appreciated his support, because I will say he watches these UFC fight nights, right? Yeah. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who have a lot of opinions out there, and that's absolutely fine, right? But he is a genuine individual to us, and he acknowledges our work, and he just likes to be at this live event. And I don't know.
Look at how humble John Anik is. I think he said you're his favorite commentator.
He did.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Yes. That's awesome.
But, that was a unique moment, right? It's always wild when the Secret Service is in the broadcast booth. But how you doing, Ray?
Oh, really good. I love listening to the Trump stories. This is fantastic. You'll probably get bombarded later.
Oh, get absolutely destroyed.
Oh, you're going to get killed.
Yeah, I've lost 5,000 Instagram followers since I posted something.
I knew you were a commie son of a bitch. Yeah.
I majored in political journalism. My senior thesis was how the media undermines American democracy.
Ooh, how appropriate.
40 pages.
What year was that?
That was in 2001.
Wow.
How prescient is that?
How crazy. That to me that's why I say history repeats itself. There's nothing new going on anywhere. It's just, It's over and
Sounds
over again.
pretty sophisticated.
Well, let's leave it at that because I love it.
Yeah. I just, a lot of cannabis in the air as I was trying to manufacture those 40 pages. So I don't think it was the most organized senior thesis they received that year. But you know what? We got our, we had graduation. We got our walking paper, so to speak.
Yeah, things don't change. I did a speech once at St. John's on how to handle an incompetent boss. Like narcissism to the it's the same shit over and over again.
Right.
Like it's just nothing. Whatever. I don't even know. Let's
all right. So I don't even know where to begin with you. So let me just throw this here. Go ahead, please. No,
I was going to say. Well, let's pick up on Drickus, please. Drickus Duplessis. Drickus, please. No, Kenny's right on. I mean, I tell you, I would have lost my house on that fight.
Kenny did.
God. I did. I put a 5-unit bet on. I was like, there's no way he wins this fight. Yada, yada, yada. Thank you, Drickus, for putting me in my place. I ate some humble pie for sure.
I really, I don't know. I get it now, though. I get it. He could take a lot of punishment. He's going to keep coming forward. He probably hits. I don't know what it is, man. You just don't see nothing. It kind of reminds me, and rest in peace, really. I love the guy. Theodoro. Remember Elias Theodoro? Like they have that.
He's more aggressive than Elias, but
without a doubt. Wait,
right.
no, but I'm saying it's that similar thing.
He's like a throwback from like Mark Coleman days. He's like a MMA throwback, and it works like crazy.
I think if you tried to really tighten him up, you'd fucking ruin him completely. He's just you got to squeeze as much of this juice out of this guy right now, and it looks like he's doing it. Like there's guys in the gym that are more tough than they are technical, and that's definitely, I think, where he sits. It just doesn't look. It looks like his kicks are labored and they're off balance, but man, he gets the job done. I'm starting to turn over to like I think I'm a fan of this. This guy's.
I think you're underrating the ability a little bit, though.
Yeah, could be. But
this dude's got a great chance to be the goddamn middleweight champion in less than 9 weeks, and he would then have claimed to wins over Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya in a span of 9 weeks.
Yeah,
that is insane.
I'll say this: I'm not saying he's going to win, but
you are. You basically that's what you're fucking saying today.
But don't be surprised if a ton of money is bet on Drickus Duplessis against Adesanya just because. Look, who cares? Like he might just pull it off.
Right. Look, he could take a lot of punishment. He could drag the guy to the floor a couple of times. Who the hell knows? But he's, again, it's crazy what I saw the other night. So hats off to that guy, man. I'm 130% wrong. Whatever I thought, it's just I didn't think he could do. Even when he hit him with the jab and knocked him down, his head's going the other way. If you even look at the slow motion. Like he's not even looking at him, Kenny. He's just.
I know.
He must have.
He pulls it off. I don't know.
He pulls it off. Yeah, I don't know. God bless him.
So when I did the 209 tattoo bet on the Anik and Florian podcast in 2016, it was like I wanted the tattoo. I did the bet. It was all my idea. Nick Diaz was my favorite fighter. Yada yada yada. Right. This time around, it's like you bring up the tattoo bet in the Ray Longo Minute, right? It's like I don't want a South African flag tattooed on my body, and yet I love Drickus Duplessis, But it's like I'd rather fucking break a beer bottle over my head live on the Anik and Florian podcast with a medic on standby. It's just silly, right? Like I like tattoo bets. This is the 4th one I've done on the show, but like it's just as silly, man. This wasn't even my idea. Now I'm in all this fucking hot water.
Yeah, we're just concerned. We don't want to see you all tatted up by the time you're 60, which is a possibility that you don't even have it. You have no more space on your body to get tattooed. That's what we're trying to prevent.
Well, and we're also trying to prevent people from thinking that I'm knocking Still Knocks here, which isn't the case, right? This is me in the moment, as you asked me last week, right? Trying to think, well, yeah, this singular accomplishment, right? If this dude can do this in 9 weeks, Kenny, beating Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya, you know what? We'll get the South African flag tattooed, right? Like, it's quite the accomplishment. You know what? The flag's killer. I'm starting to talk myself into this a little bit. So
yeah, that's
flag's pretty
crazy.
Sweet.
But no, hats off to him. What else?
He's gonna win though. Do you understand though? Like because I have because I have this tattoo bet. He's going to beat Izzy in 9 weeks.
Where's the tattoo going? Is it a chest piece? Is it back? What are we talking about here, John? What about like underneath the eye, like a little like eye tattoo? No, neck.
At Anik Florian Pod, if you have location suggestions.
I tell you what.
Lower back.
I love it. He turned it right into a promotional piece. I love this guy.
He did.
So I don't even know where to begin with you, Ray, and we have you for about 25 more minutes. I want to ask you about Dan Hooker, Jalen Turner, Bo Nickel. I want to ask you about Pantoja and Moreno. Let us start with Bo Nickel, if we could. I know he doesn't need a nickname, but DC called him Blue Chip. I think, Blue Chip Bo Nickel. My goodness fucking gracious. 38 seconds. He turns the power on Val Woodburn, who is better than you think. I'll just say that. What else can be said about Bo Nickel? He can wrestle, and he put the hands on display for the world to see, Raymond.
Yeah, no, listen, he did exactly what he had to do. A guy like that, last-minute replacement, he got rid of him quickly. Like, again, that fight ends up going into the third round. You'd get a whole lot of criticism. He should have did this. He should have did that. So Bo Nickel right now he's batting 1,000. He's doing everything he's supposed to be doing the way he's supposed to be doing it. And I think he did it again. And I mean, right now they do have to up his competition. He's got a couple of fights under his belt. It's crazy how many fights this guy has, but Blue Chip is a perfect name for this guy. And I'd like to see him just bump the competition a little bit. I personally don't think he's going to have any problems, but the last minute replacement stuff and stuff like that, he's proven he's way beyond that at this point.
Ken-Flo, what do you have for us on Bo Nickel?
Well, apparently Bo can put you on your back with his fists as well, man. That does not bode well for everyone else in the division. I think what was most impressive for me watching the knockout, it's not just the power shots. That anybody can do that. Anyone can kind of swing for the fences and land them. What was most impressive was his composure and his vision in the pocket. He almost looked like a seasoned striker. And I'm like, this guy doesn't have the resume. He doesn't have the striking pedigree. He doesn't even have the MMA experience. And he's looking like this against another guy who is a striker. And granted, he's a lot smaller than him, but his ability to kind of just get out of range, and he's watching everything with his eyes. He's just moving out of the way of the fist, and he's coming right back with a counter shot. And that's stuff you usually see from like high-level strikers. So to me, what it shows is that this guy is an insane world-class competitor. I think that he showed a lot in this fight. He's going to build off of his confidence with his striking because of this performance. And if you want to fight Bo Nickel, fight him now. Don't fight him later, because if he's making these kind of improvements and if his game is where it is right now after such little experience, dude, the sky's the limit. Just watching him move around and practice, he has that something special. And I think it's probably, in my opinion, something more special than what Khamzat Chimaev has. So to me, down the line, if these guys face each other, already I'm leaning towards Bo Nickel just based on how he moves. Chimaev doesn't have that kind of footwork. He doesn't have that kind. He's more of a juggernaut destroyer. But I think Bo Nickel is going to be more technical. I think both with his wrestling and with his striking. So I'm really excited to see these guys face each other in future. But I like the fact that Bo Nickel has been taking the right fights, getting the right experience. I think now he's going to be tested a little bit more. Now, I don't think he should go into the top 15 just yet, because if the UFC knows what they have and someone like Bo Nickel and can build this guy up, they're already putting him on main cards of pay-per-views with such little experience. Build him up, get him that experience, because he might be the next guy when Adesanya's on the way out. Bo Nickel will take that throne and probably hold that belt for a very long time.
Incredibly high praise, and I think a lot of it worthwhile there from Ken-Flo. I do believe that's a dream matchup, Bo Nickel and Khamzat Chimaev. And some people have said to me, man, you're really high on Bo Nickel, but I take it from his coaches too. Take it from Ken-Flo if you don't take it from me.
And somebody said in the announcing booth that his mother's a boxing trainer, which makes sense too. It looks like he's grown up boxing, or at least around it, because like Kenny said, the in and out footwork, the awareness, getting out of the way of punches, just enough to come back and land your punches. That's not something that you get overnight, man. You got to be in the gym a while for that. So this guy is the limit. But I would like they could bump him now. They have to bump him because it'll
they'll bump him. But I agree with Kenny. Bump him to the top 25, not the top 15.
Yeah,
but that isn't to say that there aren't winnable fights in the middleweight top 15 right now. And I'm not going to start naming names, but Bo Nickel is a problem.
Yeah. How about this? Bump him to where he's not a minus 1,000. Let's get him around plus a minus 500. Let's do that.
Makes sense.
Not a minus 1,000.
Right, and he was 4 figures against Trayshawn Gore, who was the initial opponent. But congrats to Bo Nickel. What an absolute monster! And I think Kenny's sort of talking about just sort of this almost championship aura that you already see, just the way he commands a training room, the way he wraps his fucking hands. I mean, it's just like he's just had so much one-on-one competition at the highest level, so many pressure-packed situations in wrestling that, you always wonder how a guy will transition when they can get punched in the mouth, and he will face adversity inevitably. But, he looks like a big game player, Ken-Flo.
And I loved his message at the end in the post-fight interview with Joe, how he's talking about, that basically it's okay to be a great husband and a great father. And, he has a kid on the way. And I think, we need athletes, like Bo Nickel, giving those messages and reminding people more than ever in this world where we get all this crappy news. But to hear someone like Bo Nickel, who's looks like he's genuinely trying to be a good human being and trying to, support that, I thought was pretty damn awesome.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and it's very unfortunate. I probably work against him. He's too nice of a guy like that. They want the bullshit. Look at what happened with Adesanya after the fight with the other guy. What the fuck am I even listening to?
That was kind of cringe.
Yeah, who the fuck wants to listen to that? Seriously. And I like the guy. Yeah. But that's not doing anything for anybody. Zero. You know what I mean? Agreed. So when you get a guy like Bo Nickel talking like that, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing in my life that I take the most seriously is fatherhood. And speaking of which, Ray, I did want to get your thoughts on Alexandre Pantoja's post-fight speech, which to me goes down as like number one all time in terms of just it hitting me right where it matters. And, I do think for a lot of us men, like we want that approval from our fathers. And
horrible.
I've had a lot more fatherly support than Pantoja has had, but I've had sort of my own issues in terms of wanting certain things like that. But if you don't know, he said, his mom raised his siblings, and he said into the camera, you proud of me now, Dad, that I'm a world champion? You proud of me now? I mean, that was just riveting in the best and worst of ways. Yeah, man.
No, absolutely gut wrenching. And to hear a guy, but look, honestly, John, people ask me about, like the champions and all, like mentality. You need that adversity. I've never really seen a guy get there that was coddled and given everything. You know what I mean? You need that to drive you sometimes. And that to me is a common denominator with a lot of these guys that they did not have the easiest of childhoods.
Yeah.
And I try to explain this to my guys, because sometimes, you think you're helping somebody, you're not helping them. You're actually enabling them and you're ruining them. They need to suffer. They need to know what that's like to get to the next level. And then they're ready to roll, man. And I think you even heard it with Pantoja. I mean, and you know what's crazy? And you want people with a good father in your life. You know what I mean? That's what you want. But sometimes, again, helping too much is not a good thing. You want
Dr. Florian. He listens to the fucking Anik and Florian podcast.
I'll tell you what,
my dad has no idea what the Anik and Florian podcast is. His name's on it. My dad's name's on the show. He couldn't possibly care less.
Okay, John, this is your moment. Look into the camera. Look at me now, Dad. Top of the world, Ma. Top of the world, Ma.
Oh, that's good, Ray. That is good.
Bro, that is crazy. Do it, that's John. Get it off your shoulders.
Come on, Dad. I forget, there's one line in the movie, I think Adam Sandler said it, like, you mad at your dad? You mad at your fucking dad? Anyway, we got to move on. I promised this fan base and our listenership that we would spend a good 300 seconds, 5 minutes on Dan Hooker versus Jalen Turner. And I think there's enough to get into. I just have heaps of praise for Dan Hooker. I hope that his fight with Dustin Poirier eventually goes into the Hall of Fame, and that's sort of the conduit through which a guy like that gets in, because I just have so much appreciation for the different layers and phases of Dan Hooker's career, moving to the U.S., back to New Zealand in 2017, seeking out greater training at City Kickboxing. And this is a real difficult challenge against Jalen Turner. Some people suggest he didn't pass this challenge, and we'll get into all of that, Ray. But I just have so much respect for Dan Hooker fighting with a broken arm and everything else.
No, listen, what could you say? Look, Kenny is very animated with his breakdowns. I'm pretty simple. I mean, he was just tougher than him, period. He took what he had to offer. And I like Jalen Turner's a great guy. He really is a nice kid, man. But he took what he had to offer. He got kicked in the head. He got battered up. And Jalen couldn't take what he had to offer. It just came down to toughness and experience. I think Jalen Turner is still a great talent. He's going to grow from his last 2 fights. I think this kid's going to get better and better with his frame. There's still no stopping him. That would be my recommendation to him. This means nothing in the next 10 fights. This is going to make you better. I really believe that. But on that night, that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
One guy he could take the best of Jalen Turner, and Jalen Turner couldn't take the best of Dan Hooker. And that, to me, is the difference in the fight.
Ray, I think you're spot on. Yeah. Absolutely, man. I thought Turner Hooker was an amazing fight. It started off technical, then it became brutal, and it finished as a back and forth war. And, we saw technique, strategy, and brutality and heart. I thought it was the full MMA experience. I thought Hooker had a better poker face than Jalen Turner did. Yes. And that came
very
down
important.
Yeah, it really is. Like when he was getting hit with big shots, he'd kind of circle away and kind of reset. When Jalen was getting hit with those same shots, you could see like he would bow down and turn away and kind of grimace and do those certain things that you do early on in your career that you wouldn't do later on. I mean, Dan Hooker, how many wars has Dan Hooker been in? So that level of experience, that level of toughness, as Ray said, really was the difference here. And I think it was something that I overlooked watching this fight. I thought Turner's technique would be the difference, and I thought the fact that he was even taller than Dan Hooker would throw off Dan Hooker, because that's usually an advantage that he has. So I was wrong. I thought Hooker did enough to win. I thought it was an amazing fight. It's great to see good guys like Dan Hooker get a win over another tough guy like Jalen Turner. But congratulations again to both men on a great fight. It was awesome. Awesome to see this one.
100%. I love the thing with the poker face. It means a lot. And I see, and I had Pantoja winning that fight, but poker face wise, Moreno, I think, was selling it way better. He was popping the jab. He never looked like he was, he looked like he was having a better time. The other guy, even though he was getting off, it looked labored. He looked off balance a couple of times, but he was landing, and he did do enough, I believe, to get that win. Going back to the Turner Hooker fight, I mean, great fight. Again, hats off to both guys. There's not a technically, not a loser, but scoring that fight, I thought it was an easy score, 29-28. I would love to hear Adelaide's Bird take on how she thought Jalen Turner won 2 of those rounds. I would just love to hear it. I really would, because I think that was an easy fight to score just based on damage, and he was almost finished twice.
I would argue that round 3, 10-9 Turner scorecard from Adelaide Bird is like the worst singular round scorecard of the year.
She can't tell you, trust me. You can't get was she a boxing judge? She's an old-time boxing judge, right? I mean, you know what it is, guys? Look, when you get people that are doing their job and they're getting praised for it 20 years ago, right, with the boxing, and probably was a great boxing judge. I don't even know. I didn't follow. You're carrying baggage into the MMA world. You really are. You just are. And I think that's what you saw that night for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I just thought it was an easy fight to score, but it was a great fight. You know what I mean? And it was, I think the right guy won, so that was good.
I just hope you guys, if I lose my fastball, like, tell me to get out of the game. I'm sure somebody's going to show me the door well before that time. But like I always say, like, I am not going to be there like a fucking prune on TV, 70 years old, Dateline Las Vegas. I'm just not going to do it. Just not going to do it.
Wait, are you attacking me right now? Because I think I'm right there.
No, your skin looks better than mine.
He's right here, right? I mean, that's...
Yeah, I thought that was awkward. I was like, holy shit.
So Dan Hooker, Kenny, right? Kenny, 3-3 as a UFC featherweight before he moved up in 2017, and that coincided with his move back to New Zealand. How many lightweight wins you think Dan Hooker has, Ken-Flo, right? Lost to Dustin Poirier, lost to Edson Barboza, lost to Michael Chandler, lost to Islam Makhachev. He did lose to Arnold Allen, right? Mm-hmm. But you want to hear some of the fucking guys he's beat? He's got 10 times as many 155-pound wins as Conor McGregor, right?
Wow. And
no one's going to confuse him as an all-time great with Conor McGregor, right? But how about the 10 lightweight wins for Dan fucking Hooker? Jalen Turner, Claudio Puelles, Nasrat Haqparast, Paul Felder, Ali Quinta, James Vick, Gilbert fucking Burns, Jim Miller, Mark Chikasi, Ross Pearson. You know, it's a goddamn career for Dan Hooker. And hopefully that's enough love for the Dan Hooker fan base today. And I do think that this is going to get him another big lightweight fight. And I don't think it's definitely not going to be Sydney, broke his arm, but yeah, big stuff for Dan Hooker. And all of a sudden, Jalen Turner, who was on the cusp of contention, misses weight here at 158 pounds and has lost 2 in a row. Oh, one more thing on Dan Hooker. His podcast, Pub Talk with Oscar Willis, is outstanding. Love the dynamic between those two. All right, I wanted to ask you about Alexandre Pantoja and Brandon Moreno, and then we're going to give Robbie Lawler all the shine that he deserves. But Pantoja, Moreno, your thoughts on that flyweight championship fight and ultimately it going to the Brazilian as a first-time champ?
Yeah, I mean, look, great fight, back and forth. Pantoja came out like a freaking firecracker, and he was able to last the remainder of the rounds because I thought he could have blown his load, but those little guys could keep going. I thought he did a great job with the control time. I think that's the difference in the fight is that, was the takedowns and some of the, he had a lot of submission attempts. Yeah, he definitely won the fight for sure, but it was a really, really close fight. I think it was a very competitive fight.
Would you move on? Brandon Moreno has been in 6 consecutive UFC flyweight championship fights, one of those of the interim variety against Kai Kara France, right? But Brandon Royval might be the most crowd pleaser on the roster, right? Like Kenny sort of talked me into this, and I love Royval, and I think Pantoja Royval is the fight to make right now, and Moreno is a fight away potentially. What do you feel about all that?
Well, I think Royval's a really tough fight for Pantoja. I think that's a great fight, and he could potentially be the next champ. Unless, we go with the theory that becoming a champ, you get automatically 10, 20% better, which hopefully works out for Pantoja because he's always been technically really, really good, but now after listening to him, John, that stuff, as much as it drives you, haunts you too. Who knows how much that seeps back in every so often when it shouldn't seep in, and it sabotages, So my heart goes out to that guy. I hope he holds the title for a couple of fights at least, and he uses that as motivation to keep improving. But Royval is definitely no joke, and that's a tough fight for anybody.
Robbie Lawler goes out with about as many style points as you could possibly go out. He's inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame on Thursday night. And our UFC Hall of Fame is a little bit different, right? You have a fight wing that is used as the conduit here to get Robbie Lawler into the Hall of Fame. But I think he understands the value of his contributions to this sport. He's a UFC Hall of Famer, and then he needs just 38 seconds, Ray, to get Nico Price out of there. I mean, all the handicappers I talked to absolutely love that plus money next to his name. I think one of our guys even hit it at plus 525 to have Robbie Lawler by knockout. But just an incredible, incredible moment in that arena, something I'll never forget. He seems like a Ray Longo type of guy, that Robbie Lawler.
Without a doubt. First off, I'm so happy that a retirement fight finally went the way I think it should always go. And that's what we saw. We saw perfection in everything, the presentation with the video, the knockout, Robbie Lawler, a stoic figure breaking down. And, I could tell you, all I could tell you is that he's as nice of a guy that you see on TV in person. I think there's nobody that's going to disagree with that, John, right? That's a fact. But when we did season 6 of the show, was, obviously used against Sarah, we were all in the same condo complex, so I'd hang out in the pool every day and we'd bullshit. He was, back then when tensions were high, between like Sarah and Hughes, there was absolutely no love lost. That guy was a stand-up guy. We'd have some great conversations. He's into physical fitness. He always loves working out. He's always in shape. I think he's going to be a great coach, like what he alluded to. He will give back to the sport. And what else do you want from a guy? I think the guy, what he's done, and when he resurrected his career back in the UFC, leaves the UFC, comes back in and goes on a run from hell against the highest quality of opponents. There's nothing to be said. This is a storybook ending, and I'm just happy it ended the way it did. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Does bring a tear to your eye, and even seeing him well up a little bit was crazy. So hats off to Robbie. Lawler, just a great human being, great guy, and I don't think there's one person that would tell you differently than that.
Kenny?
Yeah, well said, man. Robbie Lawler would come out to the Last of the Mohicans song. I think it's called Promontory, and it's one of the few walkout songs I get chills every single time I hear it and I see Robbie Lawler, that absolute warrior, walk out to it. It's a war song. And many say that they're going to go out and they're going to go to war when they go out to fight. Robbie Lawler actually means it. And when Robbie Lawler went to punch you, he was trying to not beat you or knock you out. He was trying to break you into pieces. He was trying to erase you from existence. That was the way that he fought. And when you think about the fact that his career spans well over 2 decades, how many evolutions of mixed martial arts is that? He was able to retain that level of killer instinct, aggression, knockout power from the time he was 19 years old, that he made his rookie debut, right? He made his debut in the UFC at 19 years old, knocking out grown-ass men, to the time that he knocked, his opponent out on Saturday night. And when you actually think about that he was able to stay relevant and dangerous for that long, it's mind-bending. It's mind-bending. And if a movie was written about Robbie Lawler, okay, you wouldn't be able to do his career justice. That's what this guy has done. If you look up mixed martial arts in the dictionary, you would probably see Robbie Lawler's face. And if you saw his first fight all the way into now, you could actually get probably a complete picture of what MMA looked like and how it evolved. So, salute Robbie Lawler. Congratulations. Thank you for all the amazing memories. But when you really put into perspective of what he did when he first came into the game to where he is now, that's about as good as it gets. If anybody deserves a Cinderella ending, it's Robbie Lawler.
Yeah, I'll tell you, John, remind me never to follow this guy ever.
I know. He's on fire today.
It's like the comedy thing, man. I don't want to follow this guy. It's a fucking animated guy hitting everything nail on the head. No, I tell you, but it is.
He's a 101, man.
And you watched a Mad Hatter, a wild man at 19, really develop into a technically beautiful fighter, which isn't easy to do. You know what I mean?
Dude, and he did it, like you said, Ray. He did it in a time when the welterweight division was insane. He reinvented himself. Yeah. He reconstructed himself. Robbie was on, he was on the downs for a little bit. He was out in Strike Force. He was losing in the UFC. He was out of the UFC. Then they brought him in. You're like, we're going to see the same story. He comes in. He looks like the same guy. He was not the same guy. He retained that same killer instinct and knockout power, but he was better everywhere. And then he went on to win the world championship and the welterweight division, which was absolutely insane at the time. So I'm blown away by everything that this guy has achieved.
Yeah, when he came back into the UFC, how many guys thought he was going to do that? That's the other thing.
I did.
Because that division was stacked.
100%.
Guys thought he was going to do that, and he did it. So, again, Kenny, what did you study in college? English? An English major?
Political science and communications. Yeah.
I mean, I got to go back to school. That's what it is.
It's a good time to go back to school.
Yeah. What course would you take? Journalism? What should I take? Creative speaking? Hey, dude, I can't. What the hell am I doing here?
Right. I mean, age is just a number. Why not go advance your education in your 60s, right?
Oh, I'd go right back in there and corrupt all those young little woke bastards. Imagine me sitting in the classroom now. Imagine how bad that would be.
Kenny mentioned sort of the facial progression of Robbie Lawler telling the course of his career, and nod to our live production team, Zach Candido, everybody else, for getting that into the show and into the arena, because when he saw himself with like a full head of hair, you immediately see Robbie Lawler well up, and it was just a real special moment. Now, most people of you, if you are watching on the DraftKings network and you see this image of Robbie Lawler, Ken-Flo, look up, motherfucker. So look at this. Right? So all you need to do is see this.
This is my favorite thing.
To know that this is an interview with Ron Kroc, right? And Robbie Lawler is asked essentially, what he would maybe take from Conor McGregor. So I should have put his soul drop in the bank for Cody today. And I promise you, heretofore, not unlike our Betch Kohea drop, we will absolutely have but Cody, funny. I know you're going to do it in post. I don't want fucking post. You know how I feel about falling off chairs and fucking post production. This is live. I think I have it all queued up. So
I wasn't taking his neck.
What were you going to take?
His soul.
I wasn't taking his neck. Oh, what were you going to take? His soul, right?
And the look that goes along with it is just like, he means it. He means it. I mean, he really does.
I want to go 4 wide and bring Brian Petrie into the conversation. And of course, Cody, my man, if you do want to make that his soul louder in post-production, that is well within your right as the executive producer of the show. But Brian Petrie on social media at Brian Petrie MMA, host of the
talking
MMA
Rob Lawler?
Podcast. Yeah, we're talking big Bob Lawler. And
talking Bob Lawler, boys. Petrie. All right. What's up? What's up?
So many people revere this guy. It's not just his fellow fighters, right? In terms of the fan base. I mean, one of our best listeners, Bob Labalita, has been just talking for years. This is like most people's favorite fighter, I think, that I talk to. And I know you hold him in high regard as well, BP.
Yeah, I'm an emotional guy, but I don't cry, right? I'm not a crier, never have been. Watching Robbie well up and then seeing the video package you guys did, realizing I was watching 95% of those live with, as his career. And I was like, wow. And like Kenny said, this guy's one of one. You know what I mean? Went outside the UFC, had success, went to 85, bounced up, but he was always exciting, was always funny. I'm glad you played the Take His Soul clip. I mean, it just doesn't get better. I mean, I played him. I didn't have him by knockout, but nice little win there for me. But man, Robbie Lawler is just, I mean, this is a guy, I mean, I remember seeing him. He came on my radar, obviously, when he entered the UFC, and he knocked out Tiki Goosen, who I know he's a great manager nowadays. I don't know if he's fully waking up yet, because that was something else. That dude is an animal. So proud, so happy for Robbie. Hopefully this is it. There's no bare knuckle in the future.
Oh no, he's done.
Okay, good.
I feel pretty good about that. Hey, Ray, do you have a few more minutes, or do you have to go?
Yeah, sure.
Because so
we're good.
Nazim Sadikov is fighting this weekend against Terrence McKinney, and that means Ray Longo is going to be at the UFC Apex. So if you guys want pictures, if you want autographs, Ray Longo loves that stuff. If you see him anywhere in Las Vegas, he loves pictures. When are you heading out there, Raymond?
I'm heading out Wednesday.
All right.
Very excited for this weekend.
Okay. Do you have anything else on the goddamn fight for us? I know how tight-lipped you are during fight week. Your guy's favorite. Have you seen the betting line?
No. What is the betting line on that?
You're chalk here. You better hold serve as the favorite, Ray. We do give Ray bonuses on this show. If you don't know, when his guys win, he gets $100 from Anik and Florian LLC for every win. He's minus 150, so short price.
Nice.
Can you tell us anything?
Super talented guy.
Yeah, I mean, I get a little revenge on Terrence McKinney for dusting your guy for bowling since 7 seconds, huh?
Yeah, he's got this is a different cat. I think Nas had a great training camp. We had some really good looks for this fight. He's just a super intelligent kid with a great fight IQ, and I think you'll see that on Saturday night.
And Matt Frivola will be there alongside you in the corner. Is that right?
Frivola will be there. Yeah, Frivola's cornering with me. We're keeping it the way it's been going. I'm very superstitious with the corners. So we didn't get our third guy yet, but I'm sure it's Aljo. So hopefully we got a great corner, and the kid is going to do what he's been put on this earth to do. All right, buddy. Well, safe travels. We'll hopefully recap a win with you on Monday. It's at Ray Longo MMA on Twitter.
Huh? What are you saying?
No, I don't know. Guys, you can hear a pin drop.
Saying?
I don't know what the hell's going on at this point. Go ahead.
I was going to say at Ray Longo MMA on Twitter. Let him know how much you enjoy his segment on the Anik and Florian podcast. And if you like the show and subscribe to the DraftKings YouTube channel, it helps Ray. It helps line his pockets. And anything he can do to line his pockets without fucking holding pads right now is a good thing. So like the show. We'll talk to you Monday.
Facts.
The man, Ray.
Take it
Ray.
easy, guys.
Good luck.
Take it
Good
easy,
luck.
Brian. Weekend, guys. Have fun. Thank you very much. Take care.
You're the best. The Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. I was on another podcast recently, and they asked me like word association with Ken-Flo and Longo. Mm-hmm. And when they asked me about Longo, I just said love. You know, it was like I do have so much love for that man, but on this show, man, you know, sometimes he gets on my fucking last nerve. And I said about Ken-Flo, I said too nice, which probably wasn't too nice of me. Big gun Brian Petrie. So Ken-Flo and I did a live episode of the Anik and Florian podcast, and a lot of our listeners were there, and they love you. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Real quick anecdote here. Your boy bought some new clothes. I'm going to see John in Nashville. You know, we're in Nats Vegas. We gotta look good. I bought a shirt that looked very similar to what Kenny wore on the live show, right? And I'm returning it, not because it looks bad, but because it looks so fucking good on Ken-Flo, I can't pull it off. So that's going back. That's going back. The Magnum PI look, I was like, I looked at my wife, I was like, this is kind of a risk, but we should do it, right? It's like, yeah, it looks great. Yeah, Kenny blew that for me, man. Thanks, Ken.
Stop. All right, so a few other things I want to get to on UFC 290, and then we'll spin it forward to the fight night this weekend. So Robbie Lawler, if he had been forthcoming verbally throughout his career, you would have had a lot more gold like his soul. Mm-hmm. He's supremely intelligent. He just isn't all that forthcoming, and he was in our fighter meeting. And one thing that he said in our fighter meeting that he then said on stage, and by the way, he wasn't necessarily always going to be there. I think as the week went on and it crystallized for him how important this was, it wasn't just your fight from 8 years ago going in. This is like Robbie Lawler going into the Hall of Fame. But he said going into that second Rory McDonald fight, he'd already beaten him once, but he was fighting for respect that night. He just was not going to be denied that night. And if that lip split had gone like up to through his cheek to like his orbital floor, he wasn't going to let the doctor stop the fight that night. He just was not going to be denied. And I thought that was a very powerful quote that he then used during his Hall of Fame induction ceremony. So I just want to get that out there. Now I want to get your thoughts, if I could, on Alexandre Pantoja and Brandon Moreno, because 28 days after Amanda Nunes issues a challenge to her fellow Brazilians to get a champion because they had none, now they got one. It's Alexandre Pantoja. And we've hit on a lot of angles of this, so I wanted to ask you about the context of Jason Herzog in this fight, allowing Pantoja to work, because if it's Mark Smith or Dan Miragliotta, some of these guys with a short trigger, maybe things are differently, and maybe even I interpret the effect of grappling differently. How did you see the fight? How did you score the fight? And what did you think of Herzog's ability, right? In my mind, I think his willingness and his ability to let them fight.
So first off, I think Jason Herzog's the best referee in MMA. He is my number one currently. I mean, there's a lot of great referees. I thought he did good. I mean, you could make an argument when Pantoja had his back in the 5th round and not a lot was going. It was a little bit of a stall tactic. We didn't really see him going for a choke, but not many referees are going to break that up when you got him in the back. I like these high level guys who are good on the ground, who have been creating scrambles the entire fight. You let him go for a title, right? Speaking of Pantoja, he has got a fan in me for life now. I mean, this is a guy I've always obviously respected, admired, or whatever, but the heart and display that he put on, and for someone who grew up with a really shitty dad without a good relationship with my father, it was like my wife watching The Notebook me Saturday night. You got Robbie Lawler, you got Pantoja. I'm like, no, I just got something. I'm cool. I'm cool. Yeah. But that hit home with me, and your boy Pahumpa finally getting the title. That's awesome. I saw the picture of him with the belt, and he earned it. I mean, you guys hit on it. Kenny and I and Cody kind of were texting about the scorecards, and we didn't know Pantoja can go 4 and 5, right? We haven't seen it. He did. He dug deep. He took a lot of shots, gave a lot of shots back, and really fought intelligent. Cardio on display, hard on display. And man, there's that overhead shot where he like collapsed on the ring, on the cage after he got announced winning. I mean, it's in the fields, man. The guy's got a fan for life. But I scored it for Pantoja. It was really close, but I thought Pantoja won for sure.
Kenny, I didn't cry for about 10 years, and then I had children. I didn't actually push out the children, but me and my wife procreated together. And now I cry at so many things. Now I can hold it together on a UFC live telecast pretty well, but like if I see somebody win like America's Got Talent or perform well, or like do you cry, Ken-Flo? Are you a big crier? You don't strike me as a big crier.
Every once in a while, but I think there's something to that, right? Having kids. I think that definitely opens something up in us, right? Because I think that all of us, if you're trying to be a good parent, you want to see your kid achieve their dreams. You want to see them achieve everything that they hope for. And you put yourself in that situation of almost you're looking at your child in that moment. You're like, that's someone's kid. And that person went out, worked their absolute asses off, and finally achieved that thing. And that's what we want for our kids. And we can almost imagine it. And you're just like, it can be definitely easy to be overtaken by emotion. And that was one of those situations. And I think that's what makes mixed martial arts the best sport in the world. It's that, ability to come back from adversity. There are so many highs and lows in this sport, and it's literally, riddled with killers. And to make it to the top of that mountain, you have to be an absolute savage. And that was just another, great story in a long line of great stories in mixed martial arts.
And this might be the best show that you've ever done. And I'm not watching movies on planes anymore. It's like I can't even watch like movie. I'm trying to have movies that scare me on planes, and then I'm crying for some reason. All right, so I'm going to hit you with a few rapid fires, BP, because I don't want to belabor things too much. Sure. But hopefully people are enjoying the program today. So for Alexandre Pantoja, you going Moreno rematch or you going Brandon Royval?
I voted on Anik Florian Pod. I want Royval. I want Royval. I think Moreno, he's been in a lot of title fights lately. We don't need to see 3-4 right away. Let Moreno go out, get a couple wins, or maybe 1 or 2. He's got a big name. Give me Brandon Royval though next. I think he's earned it.
And then how do you handicap Volkanovski against some of these lightweights like, say, Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje? We've seen the Islam Makhachev fight, but how do you feel about his game translating against the true elite guys at 55?
I mean, the striking, that's the kind of shit I love, is what the striking display that Volkanovski, the subtle things that he did to shut Yair down, the subtle switch stances. You're going to throw the kick. I'm going to go for a takedown now. That is some genius, high level stuff. After watching that, watching the timing, watching the power, watching him ragdoll Yair, Islam saying, oh, this dude's fucking strong, right? I like his chances at 55 against anybody. I mean, even with an Islam rematch, he's short, he's, whatever. But other than that, he's a powerful dude. And I mean, I've rewatched the main event like 3 or 4 times, just like, okay, that is like some of the greatest things I've ever seen. I'm dorking out about it. It's incredible. And it's just little subtle stuff. It's not flashy, so it's not catching a lot of eyes, but man, it's so high level and good.
Unbelievable. Congrats to Jesus Aguilar for the 17-second knockout of Shannon Ross. What a huge moment for him. You got to think there's a discretionary bonus coming his way. Vitor Petrino, you were on him. Nice prelim selection there. He gets his first career win by submission. Alonzo Metafield, I really think, is coming into his own at 35. I did message my friend, the Bendigo bomber, Jimmy Crute, today. Hopefully he doesn't retire. I'd like to see him at least try to sort of put in one more good camp, but I'm not sure his heart is still in it. And then Denise Gomes, Tatsuro Taira. I mean, this is one of the more memorable nights for me of all time, but Denise Gomes, fastest finish in UFC strawweight history against the previously undefeated Jasmine Jauregui. Did Gomes get a bonus? Yeah, I think she did. Denise fucking Gomes. Anything else, BP, on UFC 290 before we spin this thing forward?
I mean, I think you guys touched on a lot of it. I mean, it was probably the greatest card I've ever seen. Top 5. And I'm not being recency biased. I just think the storylines and everything adding up, the level of fighting as well. Bo Nickel. I'm a Bo Nickel guy. I texted Cody. I didn't want to put this out publicly because a lot of people are against Bo, I guess. There's some haters out there. I texted Cody. I said, I think he's going to be champ within 10 fights. I mean, Chris Weidman did it in 11. I mean, Bo Nickel can do it. Yeah. I'm getting ahead of myself, but man, the sky's the limit for this kid.
Well, and there's a definite point of comparison with Chris Weidman and Bo Nickel in terms of not just the appetite for knowledge, but the ability to incorporate things into their game. And I think Volkanovski, too, is another guy. My gosh. Just as long as his body holds up. I mean, anybody can be knocked out, but Jeez, man. I hope people are fucking making money on Volkanovski. All right.
Yeah, I did. I gave I had a bad night, but what saved me was all week. I don't want to brag here. All week, I'm like, man, I'm getting text plays and stuff, and I go, I really think Volkanovski's going to do it late. So I played Volkanovski by knockout round 3 and round 4. Obviously, yeah. So I hit the round, but man, I just thought that's the way it was kind of going to go. Was a little ground and pound, a lot of wrestling, and yeah. So, but I'm still down on the night. I went really heavy on Bobby Knuckles. That hurts.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to get into all of that.
Yeah.
But before we update the standings, actually, let me update the standings first, and then I'll circle back to the pronunciation of the week.
All right.
Pronunciation of the week, by the way, is an absolute doozy. I think we're going to have a Brazilian flair to that segment for a while. But the updated standings read like this. Team Florian was minus 1245 on the year. Team Petrie minus 1820. Here comes the pain. Kenny, at least you fucking brought it for the previous 90 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Petrie goes 3-4 overall. 5-unit play on Bo Nickel gets wiped out with the change of opponent. Did have that nice whack, as we mentioned, on Vitor Petrino as your extra prelim play. Minus 525 on the week, not too bad, but you're now minus 2345 on the year. Team Florian started the week minus 1245 for 2023. 2-4. Nice whack for you both on Robbie Lawler, by the way, plus 220. But again, losing on big favorites is going to hurt you here in this main event challenge. So Jalen Turner, Ken-Flo, Brandon Moreno, and then the 5-unit $1,950 play on Robert Whitaker at minus 390. So it's minus 2,185 American dollars on the week, and now minus.
It hurts so good.
So minus 3430 on the year, and for the first time since January, Team Petrie / Anik has taken the lead by over $1,000.
$34.30.
Wow.
So Kenny and Cody.
Damn it.
Kenny and Cody need to start conditioning their scalps for breaking bottles over the head live on the show. That's the punishment. We're going to find the softest, most plastic-like glass bottles we can find.
Sure.
But the losers of the main event challenge this year are cracking bottles over their heads. And I have no hair, so, I'm not going to grow my hair out for the
Sure, yeah. Like I said, you do the cornholio, no cuts, nothing, you're good.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a hood. I'm not getting a South Africa flag tattoo, though. I'm sorry. All right.
Oh, man.
Let us get into this pronunciation of the week. She's fighting Holly Holm this weekend, Bri.
Yeah.
The first 2 names are what we need from you. The last name is Silva or Silvas, Buffer might say, right? But we need the first 2 names of Holly Holm's opponent, Bri.
See, I don't know if I'd be a good fighter because you've already got in my head a little bit. You said this is a doozy. When you sent this in the email, I'm like, I'm going to fucking nail this. I'm going to go Mayra Bueno Silva.
It's pretty good.
Mayra Bueno Silva.
All right, let's hear her.
Mayra Bueno. Mayra Bueno. Agora com apelido. Mayra Chitara Bueno. Devagar. Mayra Chitara Bueno.
So we do like when Petrie goes musical interlude. You didn't go musical interlude.
Well, a lot of Brazil, either I sound very Italian when I do Brazilian, or I go very musical and it's Mayra Bueno Silva. You know, I mean, that's that's kind of a mix there. But she kind of got musical saying it as well.
She did.
Yeah.
Kenny.
That's Canada.
Kenny, I have my opinion as to whether or not Circle gets a square today. Would you give him credit for his pronunciation?
It was pretty damn close. Did he say Maida?
So that's see again. That's why
it's a little off.
Myra. So
Myra. Yeah.
So you will hear this weekend. It's Holly Holm versus Mayra Bueno Silva. So I'm sorry, but that's just
give me an L. I got an L. That's okay. I'll take them.
Good enough.
Stack them up.
More importantly for our audience, all of these odds courtesy of DraftKings Sportsbook. We need some predictions, fellas. It's UFC Fight Night. Holm versus Mayra Bueno Silva live from the UFC Apex. First fight for us involves Longo's guy Nazim Sadikov minus 150, Terrence McKinney plus 130. Is it Sadikov? Either way, he's 29 years of age, 8-1, coming off a big stoppage of Evan Elder in his UFC debut. Bri. That was back in February. It was the fight of the night. Now he draws McKinney, who could use a win after what happened in Rio back in January. How do you handicap this one?
Love this fight. Love this fight. Go ahead, all the commenters. Go ahead. Brian's a homer. He's just picking Longo's guy. Longo's guys wins, right? So I'm going Nas here. They do win. Nas is sturdy, man. He's a thick tank of a guy, and he's got cardio for days. He fought a really good guy in the Contender Series. Knocked him out in round 3, and then he fought Evelyn Elder, who's 0-2 in the UFC currently, but is a good grappler, is experienced, has a good resume. He's fighting on this card as well. And I know it was a very close fight until the cut happened, but this guy's nasty. Like Longo's guys, he's in your face. He has incredible cardio and is tough as nails. He's training, and that gym is on fire right now with Fervola, Dennis Mazouk. They got some studs. I think Nas is coming out winning. Terrence McKinney, talented kid. I got to watch what I say because I've seen some people criticize him before, and he's put him on blast. I think he's an incredibly talented kid. He's going to come out there. If you're going to play Terrence McKinney, it's round 1 knockout. I have yet to see Terrence McKinney go 2 rounds, 3 rounds. He hasn't proven it. Everything's fast. Everything's quick. He's explosive. That's his style. That's great. He's got to have to figure it out if he doesn't have the cardio for that. So give me Nas. And not only that for Nas, for my New York brothers out there, give me 3 units on him. 3 extra units on Nas there.
3 units on Nas at -150. All right, Ken-Flo, this is your division, 155 pounds. If you don't know, Kenny fought for the UFC lightweight championship twice. McKinney started fast in the UFC, that 7-second knockout of Matt Frevola. Now, though, he has lost 2 of his last 3. Couple submission wins for McKinney as well in the UFC. Ken-Flo, your thoughts on him here as the underdog against Longo's guy?
Yeah, I think McKinney's an excellent fighter. I think he's very technical. I think he tends to get off to a hot start. After that, he does tend to fade. And, I wonder how much substance there is to his game, meaning what are his fundamentals all about? Does he have just a few dangerous techniques and after that it just all goes away? Does it all fall apart? I don't know, but that's kind of what it seems like. And hopefully Terrence McKinney is able to get back on track. But I think Nazim Sadikov is a problem. I think to see him, the way that he counter-strikes and can stay in the pocket, get out of the pocket and return, especially with that left-hand cross, is very impressive. It's a high-level pull that he throws and lands. So, and I think he's got a lot of different skills as well. Seeing him and doing my research and watching the videos on Nazim, I was just really impressed with his whole outlook. He's a very mature kid. He's been working very hard at this. He's got a great support system, of course, with all the guys over at Longo and all the great fighters that are around him as well. That helps kind of feed that momentum and that confidence. So I think he's in a good spot to win this. I'm going to put 2 units on Nazim. I think he's going to be able to get it done. Terrence is very dangerous, like BP said, especially in round 1. So he's got to be careful there. McKinney has a lot of firepower early, but I think Nazim is slick enough to avoid that and then come away with the win.
I can almost guarantee you that -150 is not going to be there if these 2 guys are dropping multiple units on Nas this weekend. That Robbie Lawler 220 was nowhere to be found after you guys put your nuts on the table. All right, next fight at lightweight, Argentina's Francisco Prado, -125, taking on Morocco's Otman Azaitar, who is +105. So Prado, Bri, one of the youngest fighters on the roster, 21 years of age as of June 16th. He was born in 2002, dropped his UFC debut, unanimous decision to Jamie Malaki at UFC 284 in Perth, and spins it forward here as a slight favorite against Azaitar. Talk to me.
Hopefully Ottman got his potatoes because I'm taking him here at that underdog price here. You know what I mean? Big, powerful guy. Last time we saw him out, he got absolutely steamrolled by the steamroller. I had to play that one up. But yeah, listen, the guy's big, powerful, 100% taking on the fence, but has guys really taking him out. The thing about Prado, look good against Jamie Markey. That's a hard guy to debut against when you're 21 years old. The Argentinian scene, you get guys that come out and they know how to punch. And that, Esteban Ribabex this past weekend, he's a really good standout from Argentina, as well as Santiago Ponzinibbio. But the jungle fight system that they got, the guys that they bring up, it's sometimes it's a little weak. And at 21 years old, I looked at his record, I looked who he fought, and I think it might be a little weak. He showed pretty good against Jamie Malarkey, and Ottman is a one-trick pony. At least that's what he's proven to be. So I like Ottman. My play here, I'm going to pick Ottman for the show, but my play with real money, real life, is going to be Ottman by KO, maybe even round 1. I think he's an explosive talent. I think he's got a lot of money backing him. So I got to imagine he's got a great camp going right now. So give me Ottman at the dog price.
Ken-Flo Azaitar 13-1 overall, coming off that aforementioned loss to Frevola. That was UFC 281 last November. First pro loss for Azaitar. You like him here as the underdog, or are you going with Prado?
Well, BP talked about it. Azaitar is kind of a one-trick pony, and that's what concerns me most here. If he doesn't get the knockout, and if he doesn't land that big shot, I don't know if he has a whole lot to fall back on after that. And I think Francisco Prado might be well-rounded enough to test Azaitar, especially on the ground. I think Prado's a problem on the feet, by the way, as well. But a concern of mine is what BP mentioned in regards to his experience. He has a lot of great wins. Who is he beating, though? But I do think that that fight against Malarkey sold me as far as his ability to show up, his ability to get in there and go 15 hard minutes. Malarkey is not an easy out for anybody. That being your UFC debut, I thought actually impressed me in a lot of ways, and I know there's a lot that he can build from. I like Prado here. I actually do. I think that he can get this to the ground. I think he could actually pose some problems for Azaitar on the feet as well. But similar to Terrence McKinney, you got to watch out for Azaitar early in a fight. He brings a lot of firepower. He fights like he's shot out of a cannon many times. So he has to be careful. But I think Prado, if he's able to weather that first round storm, I think he can pull this off.
All right, nicely done. We move along to the heavyweights. Walt Harris, now 40 years of age, minus 180, taking on Josh Parisian, who is plus 155. Last win for the big ticket came against Alexei Oleinik. That was July of 2019. His last fight more than 2 years ago, first round stoppage, lost to Marcin Tybura, June 5th, 2021. Brian Parisian, a little bit of an uneven 2-3 start to his UFC career. Harris 6-9 with one no contest in the UFC. More on Walt on the back end. But what are your thoughts on here? Harris about 2-1 against Josh Parisian.
Man, I mean, if you break down statistically what I've been doing this year, you should not be putting money on heavyweight bets for me because I am missing a lot. I look at this fight. Listen, I like Walt Harris, right? He's explosive. Where's the Walt Harris? I know he's been through a lot and personally, right? That's horrible what happened to him a year or two ago. But the Walt Harris that fought Sergey Spivak, what happened to that guy? The explosive. He's training with John Jones. He is 40 years old. But again, at heavyweight, we're going to let that one slide. And Parisian's a guy who used to kind of use his length and volume to get guys. Not lately, he's just been getting taken down and smothered, not really been able to get off. I don't know what to do here. I think Walt's going to have a good first round, but I just think the number's too big on Parisian. I mean, this is a middling heavyweight fight. Neither of these guys are probably, not to be an asshole, they're probably won't going to make it to a title shot. So these are guys that, when they're middling heavyweights, you're going to go dog for me. I'm going to go dog by Parisian, probably by decision, maybe a late round stoppage because Walt's gas tank has been questionable. But again, hopefully he's training with Mo Green and John Jones. He's getting all the wrestling in. But I just think the volume's gonna be too much for Parisian. On Parisian's side, I'm gonna take another dog here, baby, and give me Josh Parisian.
Josh Parisian plus 155 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. Kenny, it's hard to talk about Walt Harris. You and I called a lot of his early fights in the UFC, and I was really close with Walt. I haven't seen him a lot recently, but I consider him a friend. And when you look at the career trajectory, right, and you look back to December of 2018, the win over Andrei Arlovski overturned to a no contest. Then he stopped Sergey Spivak, stopped Alexei Oleinik, and then his daughter Anaya Blanchard is murdered October of 2019. And then he comes back, 7 months later against Alistair Overeem. Started well, but the emotional backdrop to that fight was just absurd. Then he's stopped by Volkov, stopped by Tybura, and I just cannot even grasp competing in combat sports after something like that happens. Time can help in some part, I guess, and he's had more time removed now, but he's also 40 years old. And I think, Kenny, if you critically look at it, 6-9 with a no contest relative to the expectations for Walt Harris, not at all where people thought he would be. He played collegiate basketball at Jacksonville State University. He's a great athlete and also sort of a lifelong martial artist, unlike some of these other athletic heavyweights, right? Like he grew up a striker. My heart is obviously with Walt this weekend. What are your thoughts on him here against Josh Parisian?
Yeah, that is a tremendous amount to deal with heading into any fight. And as you mentioned, it does take time. And I think also, we forget that he's dealing with that, but also he has to be, the strong pillar in the relationship. for his wife, for the rest of the members in his family. And that is another burden yet still. So, yeah, I can't even imagine. But for Walt Harris, I think that this is actually a good fight for him in a lot of ways. I think that, both these are two guys that have had some inconsistent results, that have shown potential in spurts over the course of their career, over the course of certain fights. But I think for Walt Harris, I think he's positioned well to get a win here and potentially start a winning streak here. I think that he does a lot of things better than Parisian. I think that he's got to be careful with managing his energy. Sometimes we see Walt Harris start off hot and then kind of fade. So I think he just has to be able to manage his energy and be disciplined throughout this 15 minutes here. In heavyweights, you land one shot, you get knocked out, it's all over. So discipline's going to play a big part here. But I think for Walt Harris, I like him here in this spot. I'm going to put another 2 units on Walt Harris for this one. I hope he does well here. Parisian's a good fighter, but I think Walt Harris can pull it off.
Kenzo's not fucking around.
Just for clarification purposes, when you say, do you want a 2 unit or 3 unit?
2.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right. So that is a $360 bet to win 200 on Walt Harris. All right, co-main event at middleweight. And by the way, Kenny's going to lead us on the main event, but BP, take us through the co-main. Yeah. South Korea's Junyoung Park -150, Albert Duraev +130. Iron Turtle, the chalk favorite here.
Yeah.
Pretty good body of work, Bry. 6-2 in the UFC's, won 3 in a row, 2 straight by submission, 6 of his last 7. On the cusp of the rankings, he draws Albert Duraev, who comes in following a split decision win over Chidi Njokuani March 25th, who wins the co-main event.
Yeah, so this is a Duraev who came in hot off the Contender Series, and this is UFC, in my opinion, going, all right, nut up or shut up, bro. Like, you were this guy that we liked. You dropped one to Buckley. You have a title outside the UFC, right? You got a dope Tapology picture. Here's the Iron Turtle. Here's a fringe guy ready to make top 15. Can he get through him? And when I look at the Iron Turtle, he's got some really good wins, but he fights so frustrating to me sometimes. Like, he's a good striker. He's got a great chin, but a lot of times he likes to wall install. He likes to clinch you, he likes to grapple you, try to take you down. There's not a lot of action, and then he'll kind of squeak out a decision or maybe even lose the decision. I don't think he's going to be able to out-grapple Duraev here. I am a little concerned because Duraev, a lot of his losses come by knockout. He is a guy that does not like being the nail. I'm not going to throw the chinny word around, but they could be, right? But I think he's got better grappling if the Iron Turtle decides to grapple. And I think in the stand-up, I think if Duraev wants to switch levels, he's more explosive. He can get him down as well. And again, I'm just seeing the board here. They're all barking at me. My board is barking, so I'm going Duraev here as a dog shot again. I think it's going to be a very close fight. I think I'm going to bet this by decision, maybe even like split decision or something like that, because, with these judges, we don't know what we're going to get. But I see it being a very competitive, close fight.
Sometimes you're just seeing the board well, and I hope all the plus numbers come through for you. Ken-Flo, co-main event, Albert Duraev +130, Junyoung Park -150. Which way are you going?
Yeah, I thought that was a great breakdown, Brian. I think that Duraev, I think he's got more ways to win in this one. I think Junyoung Park, I think he's a good overall mixed martial artist, no question about it. But when I look at finishing prowess, with his submissions or with his striking, I don't see him having that crazy knockout power. Maybe I'm wrong on that. And certainly anyone can be knocked out, but I don't see him being that big threat for the finish when it comes to submissions or on the feet here against Duraev anyway. I do think Duraev could get a submission. I do think also he's got the power to maybe get a knockout as well. Is he? I don't know. I think it most likely will go to decision. I think Junyoung Park is very good at winning rounds, but against Duraev, I think the effectiveness of his striking, the effectiveness of his grappling will probably be the difference. I think he's just better in those two realms. But I think sometimes he just makes some questionable decisions in fights. So hopefully he's, getting that experience to be more, to have that octagon feel like it's more his home. So I do like Duraev. I need points. Give me another unit on Duraev to get it done as the underdog. I'm using all my units today.
This fucking guy is not messing around.
Out of control.
I gotta let the hands go.
I gotta put my big boy pants on.
when you're down like this, either you freeze up and you just play conservative.
I fucking love it.
I gotta let the hands go. It's the fifth round. I gotta do something.
I fucking love this. I love it.
All right, well, let's go right back to him. Main event, women's bantamweight division. Holly Holm, -155. Maida Bueno Silva, +135. Holm, really, Kenny, is so much better than her 8-6 UFC record suggests, in my mind at least. Outpointed Yana Santos back in March. She's won 3 of 4. That sandwiched around a 2022 5-round split loss to Ketlin Vieira, a fight in which she was competitive and thought she won. She did. I'm not saying I did. On the other side, Maida Bueno, 5-2-1 in the UFC. She's been very active, Kenny. 2 straight submission wins, 3 straight wins overall. That's serving to position her for her first UFC main event against a former world champion. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is an interesting fight. I think that Holly can be in the driver's seat, though. I think that her ability to outpoint her, to get in and get out, and stop the takedowns, that's going to be key. She's going to have to keep this on the feet. If she's able to go to the ground, she needs to be the one that's on top, utilizing her ground and pound. She can't get too fancy, though, with her grappling. You know, if she tries to exchange too much, Maida may be able to hit some kind of submission or reversal where she gets on top. But I think Holly, you know, you mentioned her record and how she's much better than her record. I think she's way better a fighter than what she shows. And I think a lot of that has to do with her nervousness, that nervous energy, that tension that she brings into the cage. And it's odd because she has so much experience as a boxer, as a mixed martial artist now, but she just needs to let go and let her skills shine. And we just haven't seen that. I think that's kind of been her biggest hurdle in her mixed martial arts career. But I do think she has the skills to get it done here. She's got to be able to land her strikes, get in, get out, stop the takedowns. If she's able to do that and win these exchanges in the clinch, I think she could do that. I think she's a better striker. You have to watch out for Maida. She's definitely a finisher. She can be crafty at points, but I think Holly just is going to be a little bit too much. I think Holly wins the decision here.
Brian, what do you think about the main event this weekend?
Does Holly Holm have a contract that states that she only fights in fight night main events? Because that's like all this she's ever in.
A lot of Apex miles, huh?
A lot of Apex miles with her. I love Holly Holm. I remember Holly Holm like when I was like kind of a fringe boxing guy watching boxing, and I'm like, man, she's really talented. Came out of the UFC. Lately, though, she's been crashing into her punches and really exchanging in the clinch game, and she likes taking people down now. Her cardio's elite. She's 40. In her 40s, I'm not exactly old she is, but you know, her cardio is elite. She's in elite shape, and this is a big step up for Silva. Silva has looked good her last time out, 2 submission wins over pretty good competition. But I go back to the Montana De La Rosa fight, and that one bothers me. Montana De La Rosa is a great fighter, but she's never really had the success in the UFC, and she kind of did exactly what Holly Holm could do in this fight. Silva sometimes doesn't have enough volume. She has volume early in the UFC career, and she's kind of laid off. She's been more of a one-trick pony, wanting to get a fight to the ground. Holly is hard to take to the ground. She's big, she's athletic, she's strong in there. I think Holly's going to win a decision here. And I think it's going to be, it's going to be a typical Holly Holm fight. I want her to let her hands go because Silva is hittable, and if Holly can really keep at range and not crash in so much on her punches, I think she can really have a good night. But give me Holly Holm for a dub here.
Nice job with the film study on that. I like the comp. Before I let you go, any other selections? Yeah. UFC Fight Night, Holm versus Bueno Silva. Anything else that you would like to wet your beak on for our great viewership? Go ahead.
So there's 2, but I'm going to give you the one for it to count, and I'll give the fans the other one that I really like. So this is kind of a twofer for you guys because I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. This should be really fun for you guys. I'm going to go Melsik Bagdasaryan. Did I get close to that, John?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I like Melsik over Tucker Lutz here. I think that could be a lock of the card. I think Tucker's really kind of fallen flat in UFC. And I like big Norma Dumont. That won't count. That's for the fans out there. She's fighting Chelsea Chandler, who's 209 bred, Stockton bred. I think it's too much for Chelsea Chandler. I like big Norm as well. Give me Norma Dumont.
Norma Dumont fighting Chelsea Chandler on the main card. I'm just getting a price here, at least on DraftKings right now. -215 for Melsik Bagdasaryan. Yep. All right, Brian Bagdasaryan. No, Brian Petrie will follow you on social media at Brian Petrie MMA. And love you, buddy. Have a great fucking week. And we will talk to you next week as the hits keep on coming in London, England, my man.
Let's go, boys. Thanks for having me. I'll see you next week.
Very good.
All right, Brian Petrie with us for the main event challenge, and that is going to do it. Hope you enjoyed our UFC 290 recap. Humbly, I think that's some of the best content that we can put out for you after a pay-per-view, and we love doing it. It will always be free on YouTube and on the DraftKings network as well. If you want to follow the show, you can do so at Anik Florian Pod. Thank you to Ray Longo and Brian Petrie. Our producer is Cody Merrow. We will talk to you shortly, probably next Monday. Might be back this Thursday with Pahumpa and or Pantoja, so stay tuned to our social media channels for that. With that, for Ken-Flo, I'm John Anik, and again, thanks to our entire Anik and Florian podcast listenership, all of you coming up to us in UFC X, and the guy who gave me the sweatshirt with the podcast logo. Love every last one of you. We're here for you. Plenty more of that came from next Monday. Until then, yo fucking later.